What's up, guys? I'm Jean from St. Lucia, and I'm hanging out with Rob on Front Row Live.
I just got back in town. I was in Vegas last night
For
System of a Down. I just got in town within the last couple hours. So I'm glad that you have some time to sit down with me because you're here on tour in LA promoting a new record. Yeah. And congratulations on that album.
Thanks so much, man. I appreciate it. How was System of a Down?
Incredible. I feel like this is going to be...
It's like couldn't be more opposite in a way.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
like last night and tonight. But those guys are
But it's cool. See, that's what I love about my job, though, that it's like I never know who I'm going to end up with. And then I can be talking to my favorite like punk rock artist tonight and then like my other favorite like hip hop artist like the next morning. Oh, awesome. So it's like incredible. Like, and I'm sure you feel the same way with like venues and seeing your fans and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's great to sort of spread it out a little bit.
Yeah. So let's talk about album number 3, Hyperion. It's just dropped a couple months ago. This time around on this record, you went with a different type of producer. You went with a producer that did more Depeche Mode type of work rather than like pop rock that you did last time. So talk to me about going into the studio with Rob and you know, what was that like and why did you choose to work with him?
Sure. So basically, you know, like coming out of the last record, I thought a lot about, you know, especially the fact that we were gonna have a baby and like all these things were sort of changing in our lives, and it made me just think a lot about the kind of approach that we're going after, and it made me think about, you know, like trying to kind of like reach to make the kind of record that you know, the highest ideal of the type of record that I aspire to, you know. So I'm thinking of like whether it's like U2's Achtung Baby or like Fleetwood Mac's Rumors or you know, Peter Gabriel's So, or just like those, or you know, Prince's Purple Rain or whatever. And those like benchmark records that sort of really defined those great artists that like a lot of people agree is like their sort of best, most well-loved work. And I just did a lot of research into what sort of made those records, like how did the artists sort of manage to make a record that communicated with so many people but didn't like water them down in any way, you know? Because like I feel like that's what we try and do is like you know, we're a pop band, but we're not trying to make pop that's just like trying to appeal to everybody. We're trying to make pop that sort of it has depth to it, has, you know. And so you know, it started like a lot of the beginning of the process was just me working on it with Patty, and the band was involved a bit too. And then it got to a point where I just was like a little bit lost at sea, you know. I had like 7 hours of music that I'd written and I just didn't know which direction to go. Right. And Rob just came in and really helped me narrow it down a lot, and to kind of because one of the other things, sorry if I'm rambling a little bit, but one of the things I realized when I was sort of doing that analysis of like all these records that I loved was that almost all of them were built on the performance of a band playing in a room together. And that was something we'd never done as a band, just out of necessity and budget restrictions and stuff. And so, you know, we tried doing that together as a band, but it's sort of like I was wearing both the producer hat and the artist hat. So like the sort of recording quality wasn't that great. We did it ourselves, and Rob came in with this like a massive amount of experience making great classic records and brought it together. And we re-recorded some of those like band in room performances. And yeah, it was just, he just brought this like amazing wisdom with him. And you know, he's very disconnected from kind of like the whole LA songwriting world, that kind of thing. And I like the idea that he was really from the outside of what people would think of us as having a producer. Right.
And you kind of mentioned like with this, you had the idea of like that full band production. So, you know, it's already hard enough. You know, prior you said you didn't do that before because of budgets and, you know, time constraints and stuff like that. But it's already hard enough that you're already expecting a child on this first record, and then you're adding, you know, it seems like you're adding more. It's already pressure, you know, expecting a child, because you have to be the parent. You have to do everything that comes with, you know, getting ready to have a child. Yeah. And then you're trying to write a record, and then you're adding more people to the team to create this record. Like, did it feel like it just got a lot more exhausting the way that you did this record?
It was, yeah, it definitely wasn't easy. It was, you know, there was a lot of soul searching. There was, you know, because like I deeply sort of believe in this idea of moving forward and like pushing the boundaries and expanding, and sometimes that can be scary, you know. Sometimes you get up to like a cliff that just seems terrifying, like, okay, well, suddenly we're gonna have to spend all this money to go down this specific path, and that can be kind of scary. But like, either you do that or you go back, and like every time I've just like sort of jumped, it's always ended well eventually. You know, it might be scary at the time, it might just, you know, and definitely like, I feel like the way that we went was not necessarily what like our label or management was expecting, you know, because it's just because of like us being this sort of band that was played a little bit on alt radio, and everyone else is like doing it in this way different way that's like sort of doing a lot of it on a laptop and that kind of thing. And we wanted to go to this and become like have even way more like old school like production techniques, you know, than what a lot of people are doing. And so it took a lot of convincing, and for a lot of it I sort of felt like sort of alone, and like people just didn't understand what was happening, and I was questioning it a lot, but we just pushed through it and kept going with it, and like I kept believing in the idea, and eventually it just like blossomed into the album, and we're very, very proud of the record. I feel really good about it.
And that's an incredible like opportunity for a band that's like trying to still create their own lane, even though management and labels are not on the same page as you. Especially a label like Columbia Records, that's a major label. So you know, how are you able to get them, you know, on your page to see your idea, your vision, and then make it happen?
Well, you know, I don't want to talk too much shit about Columbia, because like honestly, like our A&R for this record was awesome, and he really allowed us a lot of freedom. And he, even though I'm sure like he questioned what we were doing like a good amount, like I feel like he suspended disbelief for long enough that it managed to come together, and he guided us in the right way, you know. And I think the way you just have to like go out there, and you can't expect someone to come and sort it out for you. You just have to do as much of it as you can by yourself for as long as you can, and eventually when it just takes time for something to become something, you know. Like you're sketching for a while, and you know, I'm sure if people just saw Picasso's sketches, they would not, I'm not comparing myself to Picasso, but I'm just saying, like, if you would have just,
you're turning into Kanye right now.
Yeah, guys, I'm Picasso. I'm the Picasso of music. No, but if you were to just see his sketches, you'd be like, yo, those are cool, you know. But then like when you see the final thing, it's like, you know, so it's a lot of that. It's like it starts with sketches. It might not seem that exciting, but if you just allow it time to kind of like age and grow and stuff, it becomes something special over time. And that's just one of the biggest things I've learned over the years of making records, is like patience is just a huge element of it, and a lot of people just don't have patience these days. So you have to kind of fight against that mentality, you know. And
I'm sure when fans are, you know, nowadays fans are not expecting albums, they're expecting singles more often than ever. So I'm sure that adds even more pressure to you as the artist trying to create new music.
Well, I don't even know if it's the fans expecting the singles. I think it's just that's the way the industry is. It's just the way the industry is constructed right now, you know. And it's like, you know, I mean, but artists still are putting out, like Drake's putting out albums, you know, like. And I would say, you know, he probably doesn't focus that much on like the album tracks that aren't singles, you know, but like he is putting out albums. And to me it's like there's something, I don't think the album's ever going to go away, because it's like saying like, oh, what people really like right now is short stories. And I know you're like a novelist, and I know you like writing, like, you know, like speaking to Tolkien about like, you know, maybe he should like shorten his ambition a little bit. Like, I just think that there is more that you can say with an album. You can express like a deeper kind of landscape. There's like just all sorts of things that can be done, and maybe those aren't the things that get you instant success or instantly get you fans. But I really think that those are the things that stand the test of time. You know, is that the breadth and the depth of your body of work.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely make a huge impact to everybody's life. I mean, an album, you know, one artist's album might not mean anything to you, but it might mean something to me, and it might mean something to the next person. So it's like that's the one thing that I do love about records, that it's like it's almost like a whole therapy session, talking to your fan or your audience about a specific topic that you went through or someone you knew went through, and they're possibly going through the same thing.
Totally. And like, to me, one of the most important things that is just listening to your subconscious, you know, because like a lot, you know, if you go to therapy or if you ever read about psychology, like there's so much going on in like the human subconscious that when like you go to like a therapy session, they're kind of, you know, you yourself are trying to like sort through all this like subconscious mess. And like I think that with the songwriting process, it's very similar, that like I try and sort of harness that energy of that, rather than like being like, I'm going to write a song about depression or write a song about blah. It's just like these songs come out, and then the words might not make any sense in the beginning, and it might just be weird noises, but then they sort of morph into something. But then like 6 months after I've written it, suddenly it's like, oh, that's what the song's about. Like suddenly it makes sense, you know, in the context of what I was going through at the time. And it was like some kind of weird subconscious, like dealing with that reality at the time.
Right.
Yeah, it's weird.
Now, since you kind of touched on songwriting, your sophomore record, Matter, you collaborated with Captain Cuts, and you also collaborated with Jack Antonoff to do some co-writing. What was that, you know, those sessions like with the four of them, three of them for Captain Cuts and Jack? What were those sessions like, and you know, what did you kind of get out of that, and did you bring that into this new record?
Well, it was really a really good learning experience to me, because, you know, I made basically the first album more or less totally by myself. I wrote most of it by myself. There were a couple friends of mine that I wrote a couple things with, but it was really kind of a labor of love of mine, you know. And then, you know, we found a certain level of success with the first record, and all these opportunities started opening up, like people wanting to write with me, and you know, and I didn't want to close myself off from that, you know, and so I was interested in exploring it. And so for the second record, like you said, I wrote with Captain Cuts and Jack Antonoff, and also with Tim Pagnotta.
I didn't know you wrote with Tim Pagnotta.
Yeah, we did Dancing on Glass together, and
amazing! I did not know that.
Yeah, and they're all like awesome writers. Like I had really great experiences with all of them, but like I think what I realized through that process was that I don't know that like. To me, it's almost like when you're in a writing session like that, the level of depth that you get to with the song is like, because I don't want to talk shit about it, because it is a certain discipline and it's like a craft. But like I've just realized that my process of songwriting is different to that, and it's kind of like sometimes when you do it that way, I feel like you come out with something that's very like instantly appealing and interesting. But to me, it's like. Some of those songs that I co-wrote, like, to me, they don't have this, like, deep sense of, like, just something deeper to me, you know? And I just realized that for me as an artist, like, I need to sort of go down this path of, like, doing it myself and kind of writing with people that I feel close to and I feel like on the same page emotionally and stuff like that. But they're all like awesome guys. It was a great experience. You know, I'm very proud of that record. But it was like this record just felt like it needed to be more of like a pilgrimage in some kind of way. Right. Yeah.
So when you came into this new record, Hyperion, like, take me into the process of creating this record. Like, what was it like creating the 11 tracks on the album, and you know, where was your mindset on this record?
So making Hyperion, I mean, it was. Like I said, it definitely was not easy, you know. In the beginning, you know, because I did all these writing sessions on the last record, you know, and what's interesting in terms of like politically and with politics with the writing sessions is like, you know, I think in a way it's like, in some ways it's like a label tactic to get people excited and radio stations excited about a song. Like when you go and you write with someone who's had like 5 hits, right. And so they immediately know that like this song has, you know, it's almost like already got an assurance that it has a chance of being a hit, right. And it's been written by this person and the radio likes them and they have these, you know, it's the same as like having features on your tracks. Right. It's like, you know, like when it's like you featuring some other artist, it's like there's immediately like way more cross-pollination and way bigger chances of success because like both the fans of those artists will listen to that piece of music. And to me, it was just like to me, that just sort of felt a little bit like disingenuous in a way, and that like I didn't want to go about making this album thinking about like how do I make it the most like monetarily successful as possible. I wanted to make like the deepest record that felt the closest to where I am in my life at this time, me and Patty and the band and everybody. And so like in the beginning, you know, because I was just writing all these songs by myself, yeah. It's like I felt like to like the label and the management, like a lot of people that I was playing this stuff for, they sort of felt like something was missing because nothing sounded like Dancing on Glass, nothing sounded like physical, like nothing was like in your face, like kind of crazy, like on a couple of on like Matter and When the Night. Mm-hmm. But it's like something that I felt like I needed to do, you know, just to make it a little bit more kind of like nuanced and just have a little more kind of like dynamics and breath and stuff like that. And I think that sometimes like it's hard for me even to talk about it, but it's like it was definitely like a kind of rediscovery process of like my process, like totally disconnected from the idea of trying to make a hit or trying to make something that will appeal to this type of person or fit into alt radio or anything. Just going with my influences and what I like, and you know, and just making it a collection of that, the best version of that, rather than making something that will like appeal to everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you feel that in order to create this record, do you feel that you really needed to have the debut album and you really needed to experience what you experienced with the sophomore album in order to make the record that you did this time? Or do you feel like this record was already in the back of your mind?
No, I mean, I absolutely needed to have those experiences, you know, and they were all like really good experiences, and like no matter what you do, you always learn from it. Right. And yeah, you know, I think it is interesting. Like I do think a lot about like, you know, artists getting into the music industry and like, you know, how, you know, especially for us, it's like, you know, when you sign this record deal and suddenly there's these opportunities, you want to explore them. Like you don't want to turn things down. Right. And like, I think it sometimes just takes a bit of time to like figure out like exactly who you are. Like you have to go and try these different things out. And through those experiences, you figure out more and more like who you are, and you become more and more yourself in some kind of way. And I feel like this record is kind of like that record for us, you know, and not that like the next record's, it might sound totally different again, but like, yeah, for us, it's really about like becoming more and more who we are.
Right. So I mean, this is Saint Lucia today. Like this is what we're expecting. This is what we are going to see live. This is what, you know, this record is all about.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot more to it. Like there's so many tracks that I love that didn't make it onto the record, you know, but this just felt like the collection of songs where each song really felt unique in its own way. It didn't sound like anything else on the record. It felt like it explored like a different, like emotional angle of stuff. It felt like it was kind of saying something important in some kind of way beyond just like my own personal experience, like something about the world today, something about like politics or something about gun control, or, you know, something beyond just me. And to me, that's what this collection of songs is, even though there's a lot of other songs that I love, but just these sort of like, just felt like each song on the album is like vital in some kind of way.
Do you feel like there was a specific song in this record that challenged you?
Probably the hardest song to finish. I mean, Paradise is Waiting was very hard to finish. Like, because I mean, I had the whole song written like very quickly. It was written very quickly, but like all the stuff that like it required to make it what it is on the recording, like getting a choir, like getting strings, like getting all that stuff, like that took a lot of convincing the label to like pay for all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, it was just difficult to do that. But then like with something like Tokyo, which is like a very minimal song and very like chill, like that was very difficult lyrically for me to finish, because like I wanted it to seem totally effortless and not, you know, like I feel like on all the other Saint Lucia records, like everything's kind of like quite sort of in your face in a certain kind of way. And I definitely wanted a few moments on this record that felt just like effortless, like they just like they're just super easy, but like it was really hard to get that balance lyrically, and I don't even know if I achieved it. I'd like to think we did, but you know, of just having this feeling where it feels conversational, doesn't seem too thought about, you know. It's like, because sometimes what irritates me with like some of the style of songwriting today is how like the lyrics just seem so overwrought and like thought about, and like the metaphors are just all clever and like everything's, you know, whereas like
there's a lot of research behind the song.
A lot of research, and like you can just hear how really they thought about like this ties into that, and like to me, like some of my favorite music from yesteryear or whatever is, it's like it's not clever necessarily, it just has a warmth to it and a certain conversational quality, like you're having a conversation. That's kind of what I wanted for that song, and that was fucking really hard to achieve.
I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it on the entire record, being that, you know, it was a more of a difficult record to create and let, you know, the people in your team understand what you wanted and make it happen.
Yeah, it was difficult, but I think it was like a real like growth album and a very necessary album. And I think that like, you know, I'm sure for some Saint Lucia fans that like love Elevate and Dancing on Glass. You know, there's a couple of songs that will probably satisfy them. Like to me, like China Shop is like the most synth pop track on the album, and like it has to me what are all generally the St. Lucia hallmarks, what people would think of. But then there's songs where like the acoustic guitar is like very forward in the mix, and it explores a lot of different angles, and I think that like. I think that's very important to a band's growth, you know, to not just get boxed into like one thing and one. It's like if I think of all of my favorite influences, like if I think of Prince, for example, right? Mm-hmm. Like he was definitely you could say he was a pop artist, but you couldn't really say what genre he fit into. Like he wasn't exactly rock and roll, but there was definitely rock and roll in there. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just pop, but there was a lot of pop. You know, it's like there's so much to who he is that it's, and that's kind of what I want us to be. I want us to not be like, oh, we're like an alternative band, or oh, we're a pop band, you know, and sometimes that works to our detriment because I feel like, you know, like alt radio or pop radio, like no one really wants to play us necessarily because like we don't fit into those things. Yeah. But I like to think that in the long run, it'll work to our benefit. Yeah.
You just got to follow your gut, man. It seems like that's what you've been doing with every record that you've been doing. So congratulations on that. Congratulations on the new record. You're on tour right now, and you know, what can fans expect on this tour?
Well, we really believe, even though we're a band and, you know, we really play and have tons of instruments and stuff on stage, we really believe in having a show. So we put a lot of effort and a lot of money and everything into like having really, really awesome production at the show. And we worked with some really close friends of ours, Core Design, who we've been working with for years and making like really awesome video content. And we have these like video panels behind us, and it's like a really kind of like I like to think it's a pretty epic show. The comments we've been getting online show that people think it's pretty epic. I think it's good, yeah. And we, you know, we're playing a bunch of different songs every night. Yeah. So I think it's the best show we've ever put on, honestly, and I don't think people will be disappointed necessarily.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again for hanging out with me. You guys be sure to check out St. Lucia on tour. The new album is out now. It's called Hyperion, and thanks for watching here on Front Row Live.